It was late in the afternoon when she realized things were not okay. She had been walking home from school when a strange feeling came over her. At first, she thought it was just her imagination, but as she turned the corner, she noticed a shadow moving quickly behind her. The streets were quiet, unusually quiet, and the sun was beginning to dip low, casting long, sharp shadows on the walls. Her heart began to beat faster. She knew she had to act quickly, but she also knew that panicking would only make things worse. She reached into her backpack and pulled out her phone. Her hands were shaking as she tried to type a message to someone, anyone, who could help. She knew she couldn't just call out loud. She didn't want to attract the person following her. Her mind raced, thinking about every story she had ever heard about kids in trouble, about the dangers of being alone at night. She was scared, yes, but she was also clever, and she knew she needed a plan. As she typed a quick SOS into her phone, she thought about who might see it. She remembered how social media could spread messages faster than anything else. She had heard stories about people being helped after reaching out online. And she hoped, desperately hoped, that someone who could help would notice her message quickly. Her fingers trembled as she hit send, and then she held her breath, waiting. Meanwhile, far away in a completely different world, someone was scrolling through their phone. One was in a quiet living room, the sunlight streaming in through the windows, and the other was in a busy kitchen, moving between tasks but constantly checking notifications. Both of them had no idea what was about to come across their screens, but both were people who had built lives of action and responsibility. They were used to noticing things, to stepping up when it mattered. And now, by chance, their paths were about to cross with hers in a way that would change everything. The first notification popped up, and one of them paused. Something about the urgency of the message caught their attention. They read it carefully, feeling a deep, instinctive pull to act. They had seen a lot of things in life, and while some messages could be ignored, this one carried a weight that could not be overlooked. A young girl in danger. The words were simple, but the meaning was profound. Without thinking too much about it, they began to consider what could be done immediately. At the same time, the other person noticed a similar message. They stopped what they were doing and read it twice, ensuring they understood correctly. There was no mistake. Someone needed help, and it was urgent. They felt a mix of concern and determination rise up inside them. They knew that in moments like these, hesitation could be costly. Action was necessary and fast. Back on the streets, she moved carefully, staying in the shadows, trying to remain unseen. Her mind was racing, thinking about where she could go that would be safe. She remembered a small store a few blocks away that stayed open late. Maybe she could reach it and find someone who could help. Maybe she could find safety for just a little while until help arrived. The idea gave her a spark of hope, and she pushed herself forward quietly but quickly. She could hear footsteps behind her, just faint enough that she couldn't be certain, but loud enough to keep her on edge. Every nerve in her body screamed that she had to keep moving. Her phone buzzed again, and she glanced at it quickly. There was a reply. Someone had noticed her message. Relief washed over her briefly, and then was replaced by a fresh wave of anxiety. How long would it take for help to arrive? Would it be enough? The streets seemed endless, the shadows growing longer, and the world around her felt larger and scarier than ever. She focused on her breathing, trying to calm herself even as her heart raced. She reminded herself that she was not powerless. She had reached out, and now she had to keep going. Every step was careful, deliberate, calculated to make her less visible, to give her the best chance of staying safe. Far away, both of the people who had seen her SOS began making moves. They contacted others, checked maps, called in resources, and started planning how to reach her quickly. Their training, their instincts, their experience in dealing with urgent situations kicked in automatically. They were thinking in 1,000 ways at once, trying to ensure that every angle was covered. Time was critical, and they knew it. They also knew that the girl's safety depended on how quickly and effectively they acted. She rounded a corner and almost collided with a cyclist, forcing herself to step back quickly. The close call reminded her just how tense the situation was. Her phone buzzed again. Another message. Someone was on their way. She didn't know how it would happen, didn't know what it would look like, but she felt a little more confident knowing that she was not alone anymore. Someone was aware. Someone cared. That small knowledge made her steps a little steadier. The shadows moved differently now, more threatening in her perception. She ducked behind a trash bin, trying to catch her breath, trying to steady her nerves. Every sound was amplified in her mind. The hum of a distant car, the rustle of leaves, the faint footsteps she was still convinced were behind her. She told herself that she had a plan, that help was coming, and that she needed to hold on just a little longer. Meanwhile, the people who had seen her SOS were working quickly. They coordinated with others using technology, maps, and experience to narrow down her location. They were professional in their approach, but their focus was deeply human. They cared about the life that depended on them. Every minute mattered, and they were determined to ensure that she would not be left alone, that she would be protected and brought to safety. As she moved from one shadow to another, she started to feel a glimmer of hope. She remembered stories of people who had been helped when they were in trouble. Maybe she was one of those people now. Maybe this time she would not have to face the fear alone. That thought gave her strength. She held her phone tightly, ready to follow any instructions that came, ready to trust the strangers who were now her unseen guardians. The tension in the air was palpable. The streets that had felt empty and threatening now seemed like a stage where every step mattered. Every decision could change the outcome. She moved cautiously but purposefully, her senses heightened, her mind alert. Every corner, every shadow was a test, but she refused to let fear paralyze her. She had taken action. She had reached out. And now she would see it through. Back at their separate locations, the people who had noticed her SOS were preparing to move. Vehicles were readied, routes were checked, and communications were established. They were calm but focused, ready to spring into action. The sense of urgency was matched by a deep empathy for the person they were about to help. They were ready to act not as celebrities or public figures, but as human beings who understood the responsibility of stepping in when someone's life was at risk. She rounded another corner and finally saw the store she had been hoping for. The lights were on and the doors were open. She felt a rush of relief mixed with caution. She knew she still had to be careful, but for the first time in what felt like hours, she felt a possibility of safety. She took a deep breath and moved toward it, quietly, cautiously. Her heart still pounding, but her mind focused. Her phone buzzed one more time. The message was simple but powerful. Help was on the way. She smiled briefly, a smile full of relief and hope. She was no longer alone. Someone had seen her, someone cared, and someone was moving to ensure she would be safe. That small knowledge gave her strength to keep moving forward, to keep believing that she could make it through this. And so, as the sun dipped lower, casting its last golden rays on the quiet streets, she took a final careful step into the light of the store. She was scared, yes, but she was also brave. She had acted, reached out, and now she would wait, knowing that unseen heroes were already on their way. The world, vast and unpredictable as it was, had responded to her call for help. And that knowledge, fragile but powerful, filled her with a cautious but unwavering hope. From a distance, the two people who had noticed the SOS were moving fast but carefully. They knew that rushing recklessly could make things worse. Both of them were used to handling unexpected situations, but this was different. This was real. A young girl, frightened and alone, had reached out for help, and now they had to respond in a way that would actually reach her safely. The first of them paced in a quiet living room, checking maps and messages repeatedly. Every detail mattered. How long had she been on the street? Where was she exactly? Could there be others nearby who were a threat? They had to answer these questions before making any move. Their phone buzzed constantly, with updates from a small group they had contacted to coordinate the rescue. Every message was a clue, a piece of the puzzle that had to fit perfectly. The second person, meanwhile, was also preparing. They moved around a cluttered kitchen, making calls, checking routes, and reviewing potential obstacles. Their mind was racing, but their expression stayed calm. Years of experience in unexpected situations had taught them that fear could cloud judgment. They had to stay focused, calm, and precise. One wrong move could put the girl in even more danger, and they refused to let that happen. Back in the streets, the girl waited inside the small store, peeking out through the glass door. Her heart still pounded, but she felt a little safer, at least for now. She could see people around, and the bright lights made her feel less like she was invisible. She was alert, though, and her mind didn't stop racing. Every noise, every shadow, every movement outside made her tense. But the idea that someone had seen her SOS gave her courage to hold on. She noticed a young cashier working behind the counter. The cashier gave her a gentle, understanding smile as she entered. The cashier could sense that something was wrong, even if the girl didn't yet know how to explain it. Sometimes the smallest gestures of kindness could make someone feel a little less afraid. She nodded slightly, showing that she was there to help if needed. The girl moved closer to the counter, carefully choosing words that would explain her situation without revealing too much to anyone outside the store. Meanwhile, one of the heroes had arranged for discreet surveillance around the area. They didn't want to alarm anyone, but they needed to ensure that the girl's path to safety remained clear. They studied the street maps and recent social media posts, analyzing traffic, potential dangers, and safe routes. They coordinated with local authorities in a way that kept the girl's location private, but made sure professional help could arrive quickly if needed. Their communication was precise, almost like a dance, each step timed to perfection. The girl, sensing that something was happening, tried to keep herself calm. She kept checking her phone, hoping for updates. The messages were reassuring but vague enough that she had to keep waiting. Patience was hard, but she reminded herself that waiting was safer than acting too quickly. Every instinct in her body screamed to run, but she also knew she needed to trust that help was coming. This small act of faith gave her strength. The first of the heroes began to prepare the vehicle they would use to reach her. They packed supplies, ensured communication devices were working, and reviewed the exact directions. It wasn't just a physical journey. It was a careful strategy to make sure they could reach her without causing panic or exposing her to more danger. They moved methodically, their experience showing in the calmness and precision of their actions. Every minute counted, but speed had to be balanced with caution. At the same time, the second hero was coordinating backup plans. They were making sure that if one route was blocked, there would be alternatives ready. They reached out to trusted contacts who could help keep the area clear, safe, and monitored. It wasn't about showing power or influence. It was about using their resources wisely to protect someone who had no power in that moment. They understood the responsibility of being able to help and were determined not to fail. Inside the store, the girl paced quietly near the corner, still wary. She didn't want anyone outside to notice her, and she didn't want to give away her position unnecessarily. But she also needed to feel safe, and the bright lights and small crowd gave her that sense of temporary security. She tried to take deep breaths, focusing on the idea that she had done the right thing by reaching out. Courage wasn't about not being afraid, it was about acting despite the fear. The heroes moved closer. The first hero drove slowly through the streets, scanning the surroundings, checking for anything unusual. Their eyes were sharp, trained, and focused on keeping the girl safe. They used discreet signals to communicate with their team, making sure that everyone involved knew exactly what to do. The second hero followed a different route, keeping track of the area from another perspective, ensuring that no detail was missed. The coordination was seamless, as if they had been preparing for something like this their entire lives. As the girl waited, she noticed a faint shadow moving outside, almost imperceptible, but enough to make her tense again. She didn't know who it was, but she stayed close to the counter, ready to react if necessary. Every second felt long, but she reminded herself that help was on the way. She had reached out, and now she had to trust that someone would follow through. That small glimmer of trust was her lifeline. The heroes finally arrived in the nearby area, moving cautiously, blending in with traffic and pedestrians. They approached from different directions to ensure coverage without drawing attention. Their presence was invisible to the casual observer, but every move was deliberate and precise. They had trained for situations where timing, patience, and observation were critical, and they were now applying all of that training to protect someone who could not protect herself in that moment. The girl's phone buzzed again. She checked it quickly, seeing a short message indicating that someone was nearby and that she should stay put. Relief and anxiety mixed in her chest. She knew she was close to being safe, but she also knew that she had to remain calm and follow instructions. She nodded to herself, feeling a sense of determination she hadn't known she possessed. Courage, she realized, was built in moments like these. From her vantage point in the store, she saw subtle movements in the street outside. People were there, moving with purpose but not drawing attention. She couldn't see clearly who they were, but she felt their presence. A strange mix of nervousness and relief filled her. She stayed in the shadows, keeping low, her eyes scanning for any sign of immediate danger. She reminded herself to breathe, to stay patient, and to trust the people who were helping. The heroes coordinated their approach carefully. They used hand signals, quiet communication devices, and their understanding of human behavior to ensure that every step was safe and controlled. Their goal was simple but critical: bring her out of danger without escalating the situation. Every decision was made with her safety as the top priority. They checked and double-checked each detail, knowing that even a small mistake could have serious consequences. Inside the store, the girl finally saw a chance to move. She took careful steps toward the door, holding her phone tightly. Her heart raced, but she reminded herself that she was not alone anymore. The unseen helpers were nearby, their presence invisible but real. She felt a mixture of fear and hope, a tension that was both terrifying and empowering. Each step she took was measured, deliberate and intentional, knowing that the next moments could change everything. The heroes closed in carefully. They signaled each other, ensuring that no one outside could see them clearly but that they could observe every movement. Their coordination was precise, like a well-rehearsed plan coming to life in real time. They knew that the girl was watching, relying on them, and they did not falter. Their attention was fully on the task, their focus unwavering, their intention clear. As she reached the doorway, the girl paused, taking one last cautious look around. She saw the subtle presence of the people who had come to help. Relief flooded her body, and she felt a small smile escape despite her fear. She was about to step into safety, guided by people who had noticed her plea and decided to act. That thought filled her with a mix of gratitude and awe. The heroes guided her quietly, carefully, ensuring that every step was safe. They moved with a blend of caution and urgency, understanding that the girl's trust was fragile and precious. Each movement was calculated to maintain safety and calm. The streets, which had once felt threatening and ominous, now became a path to security. Every step forward was a victory, every careful motion a promise kept. As they guided her further from danger, the girl realized something important. She had reached out, and someone had listened. In that moment, she understood that courage wasn't just about facing danger alone. It was about reaching out, trusting others, and believing that someone could step in to help. The thought gave her a sense of empowerment, a quiet confidence that she could carry forward even after this ordeal. And so, as the evening shadows grew longer, she moved safely, guided by the unseen but dedicated presence of her rescuers. She felt a mixture of exhaustion and relief, fear and hope, but above all, a deep sense of gratitude. The world, she realized, could respond to her call for help, and real heroes could appear when they were needed most. She knew that this experience would stay with her forever, a story of courage. The streets had grown darker now, with the sun fully dipped below the horizon, leaving only the faint glow of streetlights. The girl moved cautiously, guided by the faint messages on her phone and the subtle signals of the people who had come to help. Her body was tense, every step careful, yet there was a new sense of determination in her. She was no longer just running from fear. She was moving toward safety, toward the people who had decided to step in for her. The first hero had taken a discreet path through smaller streets, avoiding areas where too many people might notice them. They moved with experience, reading the environment like a map, noting where shadows fell and where cars and pedestrians might appear. Their focus was unwavering, every sense tuned to the goal of ensuring that the girl remained unseen and safe. Communication with the team was constant, quiet, efficient. They were aware that every second mattered, and that mistakes could cost dearly. The second hero had chosen another approach, moving through a different part of the area to monitor potential threats. Their presence was barely noticeable to the casual observer, but they were carefully watching for any sign of danger, ready to act instantly if needed. Both heroes coordinated silently, understanding each other's positions and anticipating possible scenarios. The teamwork was seamless, as if they had done this many times, though each rescue was unique in its challenges. Inside the store, the girl took a deep breath, trying to calm herself. The bright lights and familiar surroundings gave her a temporary sense of security, but she knew she could not stay there forever. Every instinct in her body reminded her that danger was still near. She checked her phone again, noting the latest message from the heroes. It instructed her to move slowly toward a nearby alley that led to a safer route. She nodded to herself, silently promising to follow instructions exactly. As she stepped out, she kept her movements quiet and deliberate. Her eyes scanned the street, taking note of every shadow and sound. The world felt both threatening and alive, full of possibilities for danger and hope at the same time. She reminded herself that she had already taken the most important step by reaching out. Now she needed to trust the people who were coming for her. That trust, fragile as it was, became a source of courage she had never felt before. The heroes adjusted their positions. The first moved closer, blending with pedestrians and vehicles, careful not to draw attention. They kept their eyes on the girl, ready to guide her silently if necessary. The second hero was a few blocks away, monitoring alternative routes and ensuring that nothing unexpected could block their path. Together, they formed a protective network around her. Invisible yet incredibly effective, their focus was on every detail, no matter how small, because every detail could affect her safety. The girl's mind raced as she moved. She remembered stories of bravery and hope she had read online, and those stories gave her strength. She also thought about the people she didn't know who were willing to help her. It was strange, almost magical, to realize that strangers could care so deeply, that they could act so decisively for someone they had never met. That thought gave her a sense of connection to the world beyond her fear. A few cars passed by, their headlights briefly illuminating the street and shadows in motion. She froze, heart pounding, until the lights moved on. Every sound was amplified in her ears, but she focused on her goal. One careful step at a time, she followed the path the heroes had indicated, keeping low and staying alert. She felt a strange mixture of fear, hope, and determination. It was exhausting, but she pushed herself forward, knowing that the end of the journey was near. The first hero noticed a subtle shift in her pace. She was nervous but following instructions. That was exactly what they needed. They moved slightly closer, their presence hidden but reassuring, ready to intervene if necessary. The second hero reported that the path ahead was clear, and that the route they had chosen was still safe. The coordination, careful and deliberate, was paying off. Each small decision, each adjustment, made the journey smoother and safer. As the girl reached a narrow alley, she paused, taking a deep breath. The alley was dimly lit, but it was the safest route. She moved carefully, aware that any sudden action could draw attention. Her phone buzzed again, a simple message reminding her to stay calm and keep moving slowly. She obeyed, feeling a strange comfort in the guidance she received. It was like someone was walking beside her even if she could not see them. The heroes continued to monitor her progress. The first adjusted their position to ensure that no one could approach from behind. The second checked the exit point, ensuring that she would emerge safely. They were thinking several steps ahead, anticipating every possible scenario. Their presence was silent, invisible, yet it was the anchor she needed to keep going. Every detail mattered, and they were meticulous, leaving nothing to chance. The girl's steps grew steadier as she realized she was almost through the alley. Her heart was still racing, but fear had transformed into focused determination. She had come so far already, and she could almost feel safety within reach. The shadows of the alley no longer seemed menacing. They were part of the path that led her away from danger. Her courage, built step by step, was now carrying her forward more powerfully than fear could hold her back. Outside the alley, the heroes moved closer, ensuring that she could exit safely. Their coordination was perfect, each move timed and deliberate. They were ready for any unexpected event, but hoped none would come. They were driven by the same human concern that had guided their first steps in this mission, the need to protect, to ensure that someone who had reached out for help would not be left alone. As she stepped out, she saw faint, familiar signals that guided her further along the safe path. Relief washed over her, but she remained cautious. Every step was a delicate balance of trust and vigilance. She realized how much she had relied on her own instincts and intelligence up to this point. But now she was learning the value of accepting help. It was not weakness. It was a different kind of strength. The first hero discreetly closed in, ensuring that she had clear passage. The second maintained surveillance of the wider area, ready to intercept any danger before it reached her. The coordination was seamless, like a dance of protection that was invisible to anyone else. Each decision, each adjustment was made with the girl's safety as the only priority. Their patience, calm, and precision were the reasons this rescue was unfolding successfully. She moved through the next street, noticing the subtle signs that indicated she was approaching the end of the risky part of her journey. Her steps were less hurried now, but still careful. She allowed herself a small internal sigh of relief, though she remained alert. She was aware that the situation was not over. But she also knew that the people guiding her were experienced and capable. That knowledge gave her a renewed sense of hope and courage. The heroes signaled each other, confirming that she was almost through the challenging section. Their focus never wavered, and they remained prepared for anything. Every detail, every step, every decision had been considered and adjusted in real time. Their professionalism, combined with their human concern, ensured that she remained safe and that nothing was left to chance. The girl's phone buzzed again, another message instructing her to move carefully toward the final checkpoint. She obeyed, feeling a mixture of excitement and nervousness. She was close to safety, but she reminded herself not to let her guard down. Courage, she realized, was not about stopping fear. It was about acting with awareness and determination even when fear was present. As she neared the final area, she felt the presence of the heroes more strongly, though still unseen. Their careful positioning, monitoring, and guidance ensured that she was safe as she moved through the last stretch. Her confidence grew with each step, and she began to feel the full impact of the rescue effort. It was more than just logistics and planning. It was human empathy and care that had carried her through. Finally, she reached a safe, well-lit area where the heroes had arranged for professional assistance to meet her. Relief flooded her senses, a mix of exhaustion, gratitude, and triumph. She realized that this moment, the transition from fear to safety, had been made possible by the careful, human-centered efforts of people who cared enough to act. She looked around, her heart still racing, and felt a profound sense of thankfulness for those unseen protectors who had guided her through the darkness. The heroes watched from a distance, ensuring the final transition was smooth. They allowed her to be received by professionals who could provide immediate support and comfort. Their mission was nearly complete, but their focus remained on the girl's safety until she was fully out of danger. The coordination, patience, and human care had paid off. The girl, once isolated and fearful, was now safe, guided by the actions of people who had seen her SOS and responded with determination and compassion. As she took her first steps toward safety, she reflected on the journey. The fear she had felt was real, but so was the courage she had discovered within herself and the kindness of strangers who had chosen to act. She realized that human connection, empathy, and careful action could overcome fear and danger. The streets that had once seemed threatening now held the memory of a journey through fear to safety, guided by Kura. The final stretch was the most tense. The girl, though guided carefully, could feel the weight of what had happened pressing on her chest. Every sound, every flicker of movement in the streets made her heart jump. She took slow, deliberate steps, remembering the careful instructions she had been given. The heroes remained close, though invisible, adjusting their positions to ensure nothing could threaten her safety. Their eyes scanned the surroundings constantly, each ready to intervene if necessary. She moved past a row of closed shops, their windows reflecting the faint glow of streetlights. The shadows seemed deeper here, almost swallowing the narrow sidewalks. Fear threatened to creep back, but she reminded herself of the messages she had received and the effort that was being made to keep her safe. She drew strength from the knowledge that someone, somewhere, was watching over her and would not let harm come her way. The first hero, moving quietly on one side of the street, kept a close eye on her path. They could see potential dangers ahead and were ready to react. Their experience had taught them how to remain calm under pressure, how to anticipate problems before they happened. Every movement, every glance was calculated to protect her. Their presence was invisible to everyone else, but it was a shield she could not see but could feel through the guidance they provided. The second hero covered the other side, their attention equally sharp. They had scanned the route beforehand and had alternative plans in place for any sudden problems. Communication between the two was minimal but precise. They did not need to speak loudly. Every gesture, every signal, every glance carried meaning. The teamwork was perfect, built on understanding and mutual trust. They were there not as celebrities or figures of fame, but as human beings willing to step into danger to protect someone who could not protect herself. The girl's steps became a little more confident. She could sense that the final stretch was near, that the safety she had been seeking was almost within reach. Her mind wandered briefly to what awaited her at the end. A safe place, people who could help, perhaps even a return to normal life. But she reminded herself to stay focused. The shadows, the quiet streets, the flickering lights, they were still part of the path she needed to navigate carefully. She noticed the faint sound of footsteps, not her own. Her heart skipped a beat and she froze. But then, a quiet signal from her phone reassured her that she was on the right track. It was subtle, but enough to let her continue moving, slowly, cautiously. The heroes had anticipated her anxiety and made sure she knew she was guided without making her feel panicked or controlled. It was a delicate balance of guidance and trust. The first hero adjusted their position to create a clear path for her. Any potential threats were being monitored, any unexpected movements assessed and managed. The second hero kept communication open with the wider team, ensuring that help could arrive quickly if something changed. They moved like a silent force, unseen yet incredibly effective, dedicated to one goal, her safety. She reached the corner of a dimly lit street and paused. The light from a nearby street lamp cast long shadows and every movement seemed amplified. She felt the old fear creeping back, the instinct to turn and run, but she forced herself to stay calm. One step at a time, one breath at a time, she continued. Each step was an act of courage, each breath a reminder that she was not alone. The heroes moved closer in a coordinated manner. Every glance and signal ensured that she could navigate the streets safely. Their experience showed in the way they anticipated every possible scenario, from sudden obstacles to random passers-by. The careful orchestration of their movements made the dangerous streets invisible to her, creating a pathway that led her steadily toward the safety that awaited at the end of the journey. She noticed a faint light in the distance, the sign of the safe zone that had been prepared. Relief and hope surged through her, but she reminded herself to stay alert. The hero's guidance was crucial until the very last moment. She followed their instructions exactly, moving quickly but cautiously, understanding that the final steps were as important as the first. The first hero signaled that the path ahead was clear, and the second confirmed the safety of the surrounding area. Their coordination was flawless, built on careful planning and years of experience in situations that demanded precision. Every action was human-centered, aimed at protecting and supporting her. The sense of calm and reassurance they provided allowed her to move more confidently, trusting in the unseen guardians who had dedicated themselves to her safety. The girl's phone buzzed with another reassuring message. She glanced at it quickly and felt a small smile cross her face. It was a message of encouragement, letting her know that she was almost safe. That small affirmation gave her the courage to move with renewed determination. Her steps grew steadier, more deliberate, each one bringing her closer to the safety she had been longing for. As she approached the final checkpoint, she saw the faint outlines of people waiting to receive her safely. The relief was almost overwhelming, but she remained cautious. She had come so far, and she did not want to let down her guard too soon. The hero's careful planning and guidance had brought her this far, and she trusted that they would continue until she was fully safe. The first hero stayed close but out of sight, monitoring the route to ensure no unexpected danger could appear. The second hero maintained a watch over the surrounding area, ready to respond if anything arose. The teamwork, precision, and human concern had created a protective bubble around her, invisible to others but tangible in the way she could move safely through the streets. The girl finally stepped into the safe area. Relief and exhaustion washed over her, and she allowed herself a deep breath. She could see professional help waiting, ready to guide her to a secure and comforting environment. The tension that had gripped her for hours began to fade, replaced by a profound sense of gratitude and wonder. She had reached safety because someone had cared enough to see her call and respond. The heroes observed from a distance, satisfied that their mission was complete. They watched as the girl was received by professionals who could provide support, comfort, and guidance. Their role, though not visible to her, had been essential. The careful, human-centered approach had ensured that she reached this point safely. Their focus on empathy, caution, and precision had turned a frightening ordeal into a story of hope and courage. The girl, now in the care of professionals, allowed herself to relax for the first time. The fear, though not completely gone, had been replaced with the knowledge that she had been protected and supported. She reflected on the journey, the fear she had faced, and the unseen guardians who had guided her. The streets that had seemed dangerous now held a memory of courage, care, and human connection. The first hero finally stepped back, ensuring that her transition into safe care was complete. The second hero remained nearby just long enough to confirm that there were no lingering threats. The mission, born from a simple SOS, had reached its successful conclusion. Their focus on human safety, empathy, and precise action had created a story of hope and heroism that was both quiet and powerful. As she settled into the safe environment, the girl realized something important. Courage was not just about facing danger alone. It was also about reaching out, trusting others, and believing that human kindness and action could make a difference. She had done her part by asking for help, and the heroes had done theirs by ensuring her safety. Together, they had turned fear into hope, danger into safety, and uncertainty into a story she would remember forever. The heroes finally departed the area, their work complete. They left no fanfare, no recognition, only the quiet satisfaction of having done the right thing. The girl, now safe, would remember their actions and the care that had guided her every step. The night, once filled with fear, had transformed into a story of courage, trust, and the power of human connection. It was a moment that would stay with her, a reminder that help could come from unexpected places and that reaching out for it was a brave, powerful act. The girl finally felt safe, sitting in a small warm room surrounded by people who were there to help her. The fear that had gripped her all day slowly began to fade, replaced by a mixture of relief and curiosity. She looked around, taking in her surroundings, the soft lighting, the calm voices, and the reassuring presence of people who were ready to listen and protect. For the first time in hours, she could breathe deeply without the constant tension pressing on her chest. As she settled, she thought about the journey she had just completed. Each moment of fear, every careful step, and every message that guided her had led to this point. She remembered the strangers who had seen her SOS and taken action, who had worked quietly and efficiently to ensure her safety. The thought filled her with gratitude and awe. She realized that courage was not only her own, it was shared with those who chose to help, to act, and to care. The heroes, now observing from a distance, ensured that her immediate needs were met. They did not interfere directly anymore, allowing professionals to provide comfort and support. But their presence, though unseen, had been instrumental in guiding her to safety. They had acted with precision, empathy, and determination. Their actions were not about recognition or reward. They were about human responsibility and compassion. The girl reflected on the lessons of the day. She had learned that asking for help was not a sign of weakness but of strength. She had discovered that courage could take many forms, from taking careful steps in a dangerous situation to trusting strangers to act with care. She realized that fear could be managed, transformed into action, and ultimately overcome when guided by hope and human support. The professionals around her spoke in calm, reassuring tones, helping her process what had happened. They explained the importance of safety, how to recognize potential dangers, and how to reach out for help in the future. Their approach was gentle, never overwhelming, allowing her to regain a sense of control over her own life. Every word they spoke helped reinforce the lesson she had already learned, that people could care, and that help could arrive when needed most. She thought about the moments when she had been alone, when fear had seemed overwhelming, and how she had relied on her own instincts and intelligence. She realized that those moments of self-reliance had been crucial, but so had the guidance and action of those unseen heroes. The combination of personal courage and external support had created the path to safety. She felt a quiet pride in herself and a deep respect for those who had stepped in to help. Outside, the heroes watched silently as the professionals continued to assist her. They were satisfied, knowing that the critical part of their work was complete. Their role had been to bridge the gap between danger and safety, and now the girl was in capable hands. The care they had taken, the planning, the coordination, and the human empathy had all come together to create a successful outcome. They knew that their actions, though hidden, had made a lasting difference. The girl thought about the messages she had sent, the quiet SOS that had reached the right eyes at the right time. She marveled at how a small action could create a chain of events that led to her safety. She understood the power of communication, the importance of being seen and heard, and the impact of human response. It was a lesson she would carry with her forever, that reaching out could bring hope and life-saving action. The professionals helped her to a comfortable chair, offering food, water, and a chance to rest. She accepted gratefully, feeling the tension slowly drain from her body. Her mind, though still alert, could now begin to relax. She reflected on the journey not with fear, but with appreciation for the courage, intelligence, and care that had guided her through each moment. She realized that the fear she had felt was temporary, But the lessons she had learned and the support she had received would stay with her forever. She thought about the streets she had walked, the shadows that had once seemed threatening, and how those same streets had become part of her story of survival and courage. Each step, once frightening, was now a testament to human connection and careful action. She understood that fear could be transformed when met with intelligence, planning, and empathy. She felt empowered by the knowledge that she had acted wisely and that others had acted with compassion. The heroes, still watching from their discreet positions, reflected on the impact of their actions. They understood that the girl's trust had been essential, that her willingness to follow guidance had made the difference. They also knew that the careful coordination and human-centered approach had created a story of hope and resilience. Their satisfaction was quiet but profound, knowing that a life had been protected and that a young person had learned the power of courage and trust. The girl began to speak softly to the professionals, asking questions, seeking understanding, and trying to process the emotions of the day. She was thoughtful, reflective, and aware of the extraordinary journey she had completed. Every question she asked was met with patience, every concern addressed with empathy. She realized that the support she had received was more than just physical safety. It was emotional guidance, validation, and reassurance that she mattered. As the evening grew late, she felt a sense of calm settle over her. The immediate danger was gone and she could finally relax. She thought about the heroes who had guided her, the careful planning and the invisible support that had led her to safety. She felt gratitude, admiration, and a sense of connection to the world in a way she had not before. The experience, though frightening, had also been enlightening, teaching her about courage, trust, and the power of human care. The professionals helped her make contact with her family, ensuring that they knew she was safe. The conversation was filled with relief, emotion, and gratitude. She shared in simple terms the story of the SOS, the careful guidance, and the journey to safety. Her family was overwhelmed with relief and pride, and they understood that this experience had been both challenging and transformative. They listened carefully, offering support and encouragement for the lessons she had learned. The girl reflected on what it meant to have human help in times of need. She realized that courage was not only about acting alone but also about trusting others and allowing their care to guide you. She understood that fear could be managed, that hope could be nurtured, and that connection could save lives. These insights filled her with a quiet determination to carry forward the lessons she had learned. The heroes, satisfied that the girl was safe and cared for, began to depart from their discreet positions. They had acted quietly, without fanfare, yet their impact was profound. The girl would remember their actions, the care they had shown, and the human empathy that had guided every step. They had transformed a frightening experience into a story of hope, courage, and trust. Their presence, though unseen, had been a powerful force for good. As the night deepened, the girl rested, feeling safe, cared for, and understood. She reflected on the journey, the fear, the courage, and the human connection that had made it possible. She realized that she had grown stronger, wiser, and more aware of the power of reaching out. The SOS she had sent had been a small action with a profound impact, teaching her that courage, trust, and human care could overcome fear and danger. In the days that followed, she thought often about the experience. She shared her story with close friends and family, emphasizing the lessons she had learned about courage, communication, and the importance of asking for help. She also thought about the heroes who had guided her, their careful planning and their empathy. Their actions had shown her the profound difference that human care could make. It was a lesson she would carry with her forever. The streets, once threatening and dark, now held a different meaning. They were part of her story, a story of survival, courage, and human connection. She walked them with awareness, understanding, and respect for the power of careful action and empathy. The journey had been frightening, yes, but it had also revealed the strength and kindness that existed in the world. She felt empowered by the knowledge that help could come, that people could care, and that courage could take many forms. Ultimately, she realized that the SOS she had sent was not just a cry for help. It was a bridge to human connection, trust, and care. The people who had answered it had demonstrated the best of human qualities: empathy, precision, courage, and dedication. The experience had changed her, leaving her stronger, wiser, and more confident in her ability to face challenges. She knew that she had learned an invaluable lesson about human kindness, the power of action, and the courage it takes to reach out for help.